Would you be willing to stream 8 to 10 hours every single day for a chance of making $1 million this year? Well, as a small creator, I have been following Kai Cenat. I'm sure you've heard of him if you're a streamer, online creator, or just love watching people online stream games. But he recently launched Streamer University in Akron University, which is a school in Ohio, which is like actually 5 minutes away from me. But it's been so fun to watch, and it's been super entertaining to say the very least. It brought together 100 small and large streamers from all across the globe to learn and collaborate together quite literally under one roof. And on the surface, it was actually a wild social experiment, and it also gave like Gen Z Hogwarts vibes, but for like Twitch streamers. So I'll be getting into the Streamer University, its nuances, how it can possibly shape the future of Twitch, because it does have its problems, and also how we as BIPOC and small creators can really learn from this 4-day university event that happened in May 2025. So to get into it, if you're new, hi, I'm Ellie, and this is Susty Talks. It's basically a very community-centered podcast that is trying to spark genuine conversations around ethical fashion, around sustainable change, and intersectional solutions. And it's all about being an online space that drives positive change at the end of the day. And to empower action, we need so much more action, and to just make sustainability more accessible and relevant to everyone. So just want to let you know too, it's a self-funded initiative. I fund everything through my Depop efforts, so that will be in my description. And I also upcycle denim pieces to offer really cool, cute artisanal denim collections to inspire upcycling and to tell stories that counter the narratives that are currently in fast fashion. So yeah, let's get into the Streamer University. It just kind of actually seemed like it came out of nowhere, to be honest, but I do think it's been long overdue. As you may or may not know, Twitch has been held by a clique of long-standing streamers, you can say, who broke out during the pandemic from like 2019 to 2020 and have really just held all the views and all the subs on Twitch for the last few years. And this has just been a very incredibly insular group, and it hasn't really let anyone new in a long time. There has been people popping in and out based on content groups like the Phase group and stuff, but it's been very insular, and honestly it's kind of been tiring because they only go on each other's podcasts, so you just end up listening to the same Twitch streamers just like say the same thing over and over again on every single podcast, and they play like the same challenges, like the same games, and they always just like collaborate on the same project. So I kind of call them like the old guards of Twitch, because they've retained their leadership by essentially blocking the entrance for anyone else to come in. Obviously there's people coming in and out, maybe organically or through other means, but like the old guard has been very much the same since the beginning of 2019 and 2020. To think about the Streamer University now, like how do we actually pull off growth on Twitch? Well, that's what makes the university so strong and what actually showcases Twitch's weakness. So Twitch has a very interesting algorithm. So it's really not reliant on keywords like it is on YouTube. Instead, it relies on networks and partnerships so that you can have more subs and views that way. You can't really put like a keyword and be found. I mean, someone may be looking for like fashion gamer, obviously, but like the chances that you'll be super big by just using a keyword is really rare. So that leaves you to have those partnerships and also to market yourself very heavily on, let's say, YouTube, on Instagram, and mostly on TikTok. And you really do have to work with others. You have to really make those partnerships as strong as possible. That's like the bread and butter of Twitch creators, and that will be what leads you to grow as a Twitch streamer. But don't get me wrong. Like I said, you can organically grow on Twitch, but it probably will take you years to be found, and you probably won't be like the top Twitch streamer. So in a way, like if you're a small streamer, you need to rely on big streamers to get those views and to be relevant and to continue like a consistent cycle of like viewership and relevancy that goes beyond like 5 views or 10 views on each stream. But for like the big streamers, they often don't work with the small streamers. So there's this like huge gap of like reach that has been found and I've seen on Twitch. And I think that the big leaders or the guards have just in a way been boring to watch personally for me, because it's like the same people over and over again, and who knows why they don't expand out, or who knows why they don't want to like bring in new creators. But I also want to note that big streamers heavily rely on clip farming as an engine for their live streams. And if you don't know what clip farming is, it's basically something that they have taken and promoted on TikTok or on Instagram or whatever else. And they're basically like small little 10-15 second moments that are either like really outrageous, or they're comical, or they're dramatic to capture, so that more existing attention can be pulled towards them, or to get like existing viewers to come back or new viewers to go to their channel. So they are heavily reliant on their own talent, their own personality, their own like contentious morality as a way to get people into their streams. And honestly, this tactic has worked, which is surprising to me, because I'm someone that tries to be respectful, that tries to be like a decent person, but like when it comes to Twitch, that just kind of goes out of the window. But I do think that Twitch's culture is very much alike to America's culture of like individualism, materialism, and like ego-based identity building. So Twitch is not for everyone, but I don't think that Twitch has this culture on accident. I think that specific cliques of people, like men that are white and mostly based in like LA and Hollywood and New York and stuff, have really built their fame through this exclusivity, through this internal networking, and through a very narrow sense of what it means to make it in the United States, and the complex notion of the American dream that relies on competitive, toxic cultures of work. When I saw the Streamer University, this was a complete difference in culture than what I've seen on Twitch. I think it's also interesting to note that this university happened in Ohio, not in LA or Austin, which is usually where a lot of streamers get their start because of the groups that are in that area. Also, this university showcases that you didn't have to be part of an insular creator house to be part of it, because that's also usually a way that Twitch streamers get their start. It's by joining cliques of creator houses that then propel them upwards. It also didn't rely on choosing people based on artificial like hype circles that was heavily reliant on clips, drama, or like weird collabs. Like a lot of the small streamers that got chosen for the university had barely like 2,000 followers or like 400 followers on Twitch. So they really hadn't been marketing themselves or like clipping themselves or like being consistent whatsoever. A lot of people were asking Kai, like, how did you choose these small streamers? Because they just didn't really seem to have anything there on their platform. Kai chose them, or his team chose them somehow. I still don't even know what the process was. But again, it's a completely different method that he used in comparison to what has been typically seen on Twitch. And it didn't really fit like that dominant white male or mean girl culture, especially because most of the students and streamers chosen were not white men. Most of them were actually BIPOC. There were females there was girls, you know, like they were young, old. They were from a lot of different backgrounds. One person that really popped off was Tota, which was a Brazilian streamer, and he got like flown out, and then he was so sad to come back to Brazil, but then Kai was like, no, like we have a place for you in our content group. So in a way, Kai recognizes the value of creator houses and like bringing small creators to them. But for his university, most of these people were working alone or with very few followers or views altogether. And I think this just shows that Kai has really taken an intentional step forward into a different direction, where he is the world's current largest streamer ever seen. He's broken amazing views and records. And I think his growth has really shown his talent for charisma, his talent for connection, his talent for acting, his talent for like actually feeling like people can engage with his things. If you don't know who he is, he's a Caribbean American. He's 24 years old. He comes from New York and has a lot of money through his smart investments. But he did create this university completely free for his students. He paid for the flights, he paid for the university, he paid for the food, he paid for a lot of the things that was provided in the university, like sandals and like goodies and stuff like that. And all he said he wanted was for people to work together, for people to come together and learn. Whether you were the best person or like the smallest person in that university, he wanted everyone to work with each other and like take away something. And I do think that this represents a major disruption on Twitch, and it changes the power structure that has never really been changed before. And I do think it is, in a way, an incubator for the future of Twitch, because those 100 and plus creators, I think they have been given incredible access to large streamers, to unique mentorship that has never been given to them before, incredible visibility, and a platform that could really reshape what top streamers look like, where they come from, and how they sound like. And I do think that flying them out to the campus and like making them stay in the dorms, almost like college, if you've ever been to college, or like a camp with like very little structure, actually really allow them to thrive, because classes were taught by like these major streamers, right? But he created a space to redistribute opportunities and influence to these new creators that have been historically excluded, like Black, Latino, Asian, or young woman creators that really struggle to make a space for themselves in not only this like scene of the American dream, but like also on Twitch, which is almost like the same thing as like the American culture, you know? But I just think that this university at the end of the day reinforces that Kai didn't just like ask to be let into existing cliques, even though he could be part of it. He didn't ask these small streamers to like fit a conformity, and he didn't assume exclusivity on how he chose people. He didn't try to get like the most, you know, beautiful, wealthy white men and women into his group or his university as a default to success. Like, he brought in so many different people that historically have been called criminals or like not worthy of a chance. Even though he doesn't like explicitly admit it, or I don't think he'll ever say this, I think Kai realized what was happening on Twitch and had a vision for what could be done better for creators, both small and big, and move forward and like release this university almost out of nowhere. Like, the applications kind of came out of nowhere, like the acceptance happened really quickly, and then they were flown out very quickly. This was a major fast moving process that a lot of people barely had time to kind of like grapple with. He accepted the cohort, and then next thing you know, like they're in Ohio, and it was really entertaining to watch. The social dynamics, I think, were essentially what kept pulling people back in. I just want to say the bread and butter of Twitch and the university will always be social dynamics. And I think I've noticed patterns too of like how some bigger streamers started to make their own cliques. Maybe it was out of familiarity of having insular cliques on the platform. So whether unconsciously or unintentionally, they started just hanging out with each other, using their existing views to like boost up their own streams throughout the day. And then I also noticed how smaller creators started using their own groups to their own benefit. So they created alliances, and it made it comparable to like high school, and like petty drama and gossip also like did emerge, which maybe is unavoidable when you're with humans, but it was very, very interesting how there's just a lot of like drama and gossip, and some people were like, oh, they're only here to clip farm, like they're only acting like that so they can get their clips and market it in different ways on like TikTok or like, you know, Reels or whatever. But it just seemed like there was actual drama and like actual problematic moments that just happened to be captured online. I wonder what you think. Like, was this drama captured or done on purpose, or just unintentionally based on like social dynamics that emerged naturally? Let me know. But a lot of the streamers did benefit materially from participating. Like, small streamers who didn't even have followers blew up from like 4,000 followers to like 50,000 followers. That growth is like crazy. They were getting like 20,000 people watching them in real time when they previously had only like 400 people watching them. And I think this just shows that Kai can bring people to prominence, even if they were like basically a nobody. I know no one's a nobody, but like to say that like he can bring a nobody and make them somebody just by the mere affiliation of them being in his university and being in proximity or in likeness to big streamers. So like if you have a big streamer sitting next to you, people will start tuning in and care, which is a very interesting dynamic to see online. And I do think it's a shift away from like the usual competitive, like individualistic mindset that I was talking about, and like this has dismantled gatekeeping. Like whether the old guardians of Twitch want to claim it or not, like their exclusivity I think is going to be very, very hard to keep up in the future for years to come. And it also shows like how Twitch streamers want to have fun and viewers want to have fun as well. And I think they will shape the new entertainment online. And I feel like new faces and personalities in the forefront will be very exciting for a lot of people that are either new to Twitch or coming back to Twitch or have been long-standing Twitch watchers. And I think that the controversial moments I want to touch on have been very surrealistic to watch, because sometimes you don't even know what is real and what is fake, and maybe the streamers kind of struggle and like deciphering those two things, like what is real and like what is, you know, fake. But I think that this like mixed reality with like acting can be very I would say capturing, because your mind is trying to like figure out, okay, like did they mean to do that on purpose or was that just a natural thing? And I think that will kind of like mess up creators in the long run. So I think they need to be very grounded in who they are, and that's what I saw a lot of like large streamers criticize the university for. It's like, can these small creators deal with the struggles and with the pressure of clip farming, of like the surrealistic point of like what is real and what is fake? If you don't know yourself, they can get lost in like the show themselves. And it also showcases too how like drama and chaos can break out at any moment when you're a Twitch streamer, and there is no way of hiding it because everything is being streamed 24/7. Like for example, there was like a huge water gun fight and they were throwing water and slime and glitter at each other because there were some problems, and like 30, 40, 50,000 people were quite literally watching this all go down in real time. And a top Turkish white male political commentator known as Hasan Piker, who does like 8 to 10 hour like daily political content, explained that the university was like for kids. He contrasted the university with him operating with like an adult brain, and how these both small and large creators in the university only focus on content that's like reliant on, you know, drama, fights and conflict and like relationship baiting. And so he like went on to say like he's 33 years old, he's focused on political takes, and those things are removed from what the university is supposedly breeding, which is basically an army of like clip farmers who are ready to turn any moment into like a viral thing to fuel more potential violence and chaos. And he also was explaining like, yeah, I'm not going to do well as guest lecturer if invited to the university, and he even mocked like how it was like to a traditional like HBCU style setting, because it mostly only accepted Black and Latino and Asian creators. And he said that the streamer university was basically a fake university, because usually like the far right and white people say that HBCU universities are fake. I don't know if he was joking, but he was right in a lot of like his earlier points of like it is a bit more fun. It is for a younger generation who want to have like entertainment based on like weird moments of reality and like fights and stuff. But I always stay wary of like anti-white satire, especially when they come from white men. But he has had a consistent refusal to take streaming too seriously while remaining like one of the top streamers of the world. So I do think he recognizes to not be so serious on the platform. But criticism for the university is unavoidable. Kai was struggling with that when he was hosting it during the time he was there in May. But I do think that he has been shifting the streaming culture, no matter if it's like hard on his mental or not. He has been grappling whether he wants to do this next year. I hope it does come back. But I do think it's bringing up critical points of the culture online. And I do think it's checking people's privilege, like Hassan's white privilege, and how it showcases who people really are when they're on the top. Like, for example, Hassan, I think, has a very intellectual based ego. And I think that came out when he was criticizing the Streamer University by saying he has an adult brain while everyone else has a kid's brain. And I do think that Hassan is aging out from this community that wants more fun entertainment. I don't know, like him being the smartest person in the room and him talking about these points showcases like how we can learn from his perspective and like learn from Kai's perspective and see like where we want to stand in midst of like criticizing the university. There was a lot of real gems. The students are very talented, very passionate, and very energetic. They attended the classes, they were paying attention, they were participating, top streamers were teaching very valuable information, and they were working under a very flexible schedule. So we would see them go to like pool parties and like football games, and it was like a very self-determined space. I do think that what kept people coming and watching was the personalities there and like what they did in their day. So like it was very interesting to watch Nina. She's like an Asian New York online creator, and she was like so eager to talk, to share her moments. She was collaborating with everyone. It was funny seeing her struggle with like, you know, eating and then trying to see like what else to do and in her day. Like the stream kept lagging, but it was just like really entertaining to like be invited in someone's real life and just like see them navigate in real time. And I'm sure that this will create more communities and networks of content going forward where we're not like hyper curating fabricated moments, but instead like just showing our lived realities, whether they're pretty or not. Streamer University quickly became like the #1 category in the world for the platform. It had like 400,000 searches within like the first day, and it has dominated the main pages of Twitch. Yeah, I think Kai's success with the university is meaning more success for the visibility of Twitch, and in turn for like smaller creators who can actually now have a route for actual mentorship, visibility, and celebration. For being a diverse creator, like I said, this is not a guaranteed thing. Like it's not promised that this will happen next year. I hope it does, so that the success continues to happen and it doesn't just all stay within the 120 creators that were like the first cohort. Also, I just think that it's a reminder in the big picture that like systems don't last forever. That things don't last forever, especially not in the internet where things are constantly moving and changing, where there's new trends happening every day. I think that real-time access will be everything. And what I've noticed with large streamers is that they barely stream, and they only stream for like an hour or two when they do. And then they're very like burnt out. So I do think that the access that has been democratized, where small streamers will start to go online and like for a long time and just share their lives, will be super refreshing and away from like the burnout and like just complacency that you often see by like people that are comfortable. I do think the old guardians of Twitch will probably won't admit what's happening. They won't say that this is troubling for their success or troubling for their insular group of cliques, but I do think that it will shake the awards and the leadership, whether they admit it or not. There is this huge award show called Streamer Awards, or was it Streamer Awards? I'm gonna look it up. It's hosted by Cutie Cinderella. She's been live streaming for quite a while now, and she has just been doing these annual shows every year to award like the top streamers. It's those Streamer Awards, and she hosts them annually, and the same person always wins every year. Like the same people always win every year, and it's just been boring to see. And it's like this, it's the same hosts, it's the same everything every single year. And they've even gone on to the point sometimes of being like, oh, I hate streaming, like I don't want to stream, but they don't leave the platform because they want money. So sometimes it just kind of feels kind of like, I don't know, nasty to like watch them or support them when they themselves hate the function of like the role online. So I don't think that's super cute on their part to admit that they hate streaming but don't want to leave streaming because of the money. But everyone is just coming from a different place after they've reached a lot of like notoriety and like privilege. But I think that live streaming will be more about that human connection, about supporting people that are real and passionate and filled with energy to do better and be better. And I think it's going to become more relevant as AI content floods more of our internet, algorithms and feeds. So I think that the unedited, like messy, like emotional realness of live streaming, where it's like mostly real, I guess, will remind us of like what it means to be human, even despite like contention, despite like the drama and like gossip and stuff. But I think like the bigger picture here that I'm thinking about is like the influencer culture. Like, will these streamers become known for being good at something, or just be famous because they were in this university because of this new network that they tapped into? And will they grow in notoriety and like leadership enough so to start gatekeeping others? And also, I can't help to think like, are they now valuable because of their craft, because of the actual content of their streams, or for their new level of visibility? Yeah, I think the final test though for these creators is whether their charisma will be enough, whether that's valuable enough to survive on Twitch. Some people can survive on that, some others can't, but other elements of the test will be like which streamers will rise on personality alone versus like becoming these clip streamers that are so notorious and getting viral moments on like TikTok that rely on fabricating false realities for views, and like how those elements will all combine together and create their future of authentic or quote unquote authentic live streaming. But yeah, to end the podcast, I think another question that we need to think about is like these new institutions like Streamer University and whether they'll open up in 2026. Because if it's the only one that launches, I honestly do think that it will be the launch of a new Twitch clique that will remain undefeated and become the new old guard. And I think that we have to notice that Kai did select a lot of these small streamers and these big streamers to come together at Akron University. So my question is like, what was the process to being accepted? Because a lot of people didn't even stream during the time. There was a model that just was so confused why she was there. So I just wonder like why they were chosen. And this is a very unbiased question. I didn't apply to Streamer University. I didn't think I was ready for that sort of like level of perception from others and like the visibility. Like I just started streaming myself, so I didn't think I was ready. But yeah, like if it doesn't happen, if this university doesn't happen again, like, do you think there's going to be continued opportunities to make live streaming more democratic? And is it possible to become Twitch streamers without relying on drama and conflict? But yeah, to ask these questions obviously leads us to ask even more, to reflect even more, because on a big picture analysis, like, should streaming even be part of our lives? Like, should it be normalized? I think it's really important to ask this because there's going to be more tech coming in. There's going to be more innovations. There's going to be more, techie leaders emerging, trying to sell us something, especially with AI emerging. But yeah, top streamers from like major content houses like Offline TV, who have been exposed to like the best media productions in LA, said it was actually like unnatural and almost like post-apocalyptic to see like so much streamers and so much tech happen in the university. And I actually looked up the definition of post-apocalyptic for this context, and it basically said it was like watching people who have survived a society that has collapsed, leaving survivors struggling to adapt and rebuild. So I think what that is saying, at least for the context of Streamer University, or at least that's how I'm taking it, is that we're watching people survive capitalism, which has essentially already destroyed our society, not only morally, but also like on a natural basis, like our nature, like our trees and like our world is collapsing. We're in a climate crisis. So yeah, we are surviving the apocalypse. And you may say we're in the post-apocalyptic moment because our earth is already dying, it's dead. So I think that the poor and the marginalized creators we were watching in the Streamer University were climbing. They were fighting quite literally to find a new place in the Twitch creator space. And I do think it's interesting that like these established, like privileged, like creators that happen to be gamers find this university very weird, but like they've normalized sharing their gaming moments online. Like, I don't know why that's personally interesting. I don't really watch gamers. I don't like games in general, but like they have sold their time online for money to survive capitalism themselves, but they find the university weird and post-apocalyptic when they themselves are doing the same thing. So I just worry for major streamers and how they dog on smaller creators and on efforts to bring community together. I worry for their morality and for their sense of like community and collaboration. But I also think it begs us to think about real life and like what we've been left to work with as young people in capitalism, how Gen Z are increasingly not going to college because of its high costs, how we can't even find minimum wage jobs even when we have a master's degree, and how much we should and shouldn't share with the world when we have all these creeps online, but also really cool people online. Also, I just think that a lot of the criticism is coming of like who deserves to have space, who deserves to share, who deserves to be seen online. But yeah, to close it off, my personal takeaways from the university is that it just showed me that people are pursuing purpose, they're pursuing money and fame, and it also brought up questions of like meaning. It showed me like some people just don't want normal jobs, they don't want a normal life, they don't want to like just barely make the bills, barely make it in life. And I personally do think that we have to reckon why live streaming games is more normalized, while these in real life, like real time streams of people's life seem a bit more invasive and immoral. Again, like how much should we be sharing for human decency is like a good question. But like, what is the definition of real life? Because I think that's what it touches on. And I just don't know why live streaming doesn't feel like a real job to others. Because let's take an example in the context of like retail. So Marshalls, okay? Like if you're working as a cashier in retail, like quite literally that means bagging items in a bag and then like pressing numbers on a register and then counting and handing out money to strangers for like hours straight, okay? So this work is like very repetitive, and it really does make for like a dehumanized mechanical process that shouldn't really go out of its script. Like all you really have to say is like, hi, did you find everything okay? And then it's like, that will be like $10.59. Do you want a bag? And like, have a nice day. That's really everything that you have to do. I'm already like almost vomiting thinking about it because I've worked in retail for so long. But meanwhile, in live streaming, that rewards more like humanity because it showcases people's lives and their unique perspective on it, both the bad and the good in all of us. And some may say that like tech isn't natural compared to how it used to be in our life. Like in the 50s, we didn't have these phones that like captured things for the online world, you know, but it's been now part of our life. It's now part of our lives. Like what can we do now, you know? So I have to dare to say that tech is now natural, and it's as natural as each other, and it's as natural as being human and the planet. Like I don't think that AI tech or like AI robots will be like quote unquote human, but I think it will be part of our human experience when they do come out, sadly enough. Yeah, I do think that live streaming and tech in the online world has been transformed with the pursuit of our happiness, with the pursuit of like meaning, and we've just been like forced to adapt and find opportunities and to make that money where we can. Yeah, content creation for like low income Gen Z and BIPOC people, it just seems so difficult to actually like be a thing for them. Like it's just, there's so many setbacks, there's so many things that gatekeep them from opportunities. So I really do hope that content creation is a tool that we can use to move out of surviving, especially when like nothing is free in life. Like for me, my air is contaminated. I face oppression from the greed of power plant owners that are like right next door polluting the air. I have highway systems in my backyard, quite literally. There's like factory logistics that exploit workers all the time. So like I know the struggle. Like I know how poor and BIPOC streamers are working to dream and have freedom and autonomy in a world that's not designed for them to make it. But what are we willing to do for money and fame? I think that's up to our own moral compass and how we want to prioritize, you know, privacy, boundaries, and the connection that we seek to make online. Again, I don't believe that happiness and escaping survival need to come from content creation, but it can be a way to reach it. The podcast episode here that I've done today was an effort to explore that, because it's not my place to say how we have a good life, where everyone's journey to our own truth, our own, unique self and money is really just up to us to decide. Again, I just think that drama and fame doesn't have to go hand in hand, which has been a huge thing that has been talked about on the university. If I was to go, I wouldn't want to make millions and millions of dollars. I wouldn't want to have 1 million followers. That's not success or happiness for me. What I find meaningful is that I'm doing intentional, sustainable fashion content, and people learn a bit about me through that process. And I don't know, whether online spaces are just filling a void for us, or filling spaces of loneliness, or filling our pockets. But I do think that every day we make choices. We define our values and we shape what we think is right or wrong at the end of the day. So I'm just going to ask you to think about this as we end the podcast. What are we willing to sacrifice to get to the top? I think this will make huge differences in our decisions and who we become and what we're willing to do for our dreams. And I think the Streamer University program just showcased people's journey and what they were willing to do. But the American dream, man, and the American culture is very difficult to achieve. So what are we willing to do to make it, to have a good life, to find happiness? So let me know in the comments what you think, what your thoughts are. And until the next time, peace and love. Allie. Bye.